Today's show is sponsored by City Theater. If you are a birthday person and you love making that whole week, maybe month, maybe season all about celebrating your big day, then the play Birthday Candles might be perfect for you. City Theater is presenting Birthday Candles by Noah Heidel and directed by Mark Masterson, and you can catch the show on the South Side from March 8th through the 30th. Join Ernestine as she takes us through a century of birthdays. The play is inquisitive, it's hilarious, it's heartwarming, and it asks big questions about our place in the universe and what we might do for the perfect gift. You can find out more and buy your tickets at citytheatercompany.org. Today on CityCast Pittsburgh. After 2 years of deer culling from city parks, we have fed a lot of people, but it turns out the program has not worked exactly as planned. School closures are coming, the Steelers got a daycare, and the mayor's office might still be recovering from one truly bizarre press conference. CityCast's Sophia Lowe and I are talking through some of Pittsburgh's biggest stories this week. It's Friday, February 28th. I'm Megan Harris, and here's what Pittsburgh's talking about. Good morning, Sophia.
Hey, Megan.
Hi. Every week, we start our Friday show with a little trivia question. Thank Jens for playing with us on our Hate Pittsburgh newsletter and on our website.
Yeah.
That's pittsburgh.citycast.fm. We like to start our Fridays with a little, a need to know.
Definitely. These are written by our amazing quizmaster, Kevin Gavin. Megan and I do not know the answers.
We try to stay fresh.
Yes, I play after we record.
So here's the question. Earlier this month, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame announced its 2025 nominees. The list includes Mariah Carey, Billy Idol, Fish. There's a bunch of them. The winners get announced in April, but obviously we are thinking local.
Always.
So the question this time, which individual performer from Western Pennsylvania is already in the Hall of Fame? Kevin says they were inducted as a solo artist and started their career here. Apparently there's literally only one. I'm kind of shook.
Really? Okay. Well, I only know one name anyway, Wiz Khalifa. I don't really think about where musicians came from as much, I guess.
I don't think it can be him because I think the rules state that your big recording, like something that was like breakout or like really popular, has to be at least 25 years old. So that's why there's no young people in the Hall of Fame.
Well, then there goes my only guess. So we'll see if I do better online with some multiple choice.
Yeah. Kevin says, fun fact, there was actually one other Pittsburgh-born person in the Hall of Fame, but that one was inducted as part of a band from another city. So,
okay.
Yeah, still not a lot of Pittsburgh representation. We got to change that up.
Yeah, maybe in another 25 years, we'll get a lot more young musicians. Start going for it.
Honestly. So we are going to start on the news at Pittsburgh Public Schools. We're starting the week that way, ending the week that way. We have been talking a while now about potential school closures. We even talked about this with the district superintendent. That was on Tuesday. Dr. Wayne Walters was with us. Mm-hmm. Now, Walters and his team have officially endorsed the big plan to close a bunch of schools and make a bunch of other big changes.
Right, because PPS is facing all sorts of problems. They don't have enough money. There's declining enrollment, a ton of old buildings that need renovations. So last year, PPS hired consultants to tell them how to fix things. They released a big report with recommendations last fall. And the biggest, most controversial recommendation from the consultants was to close 14 schools.
14. It's so many.
Mm-hmm. And obviously, a lot of people were not happy, parents, students, and the plan was sort of like tabled for the time. The district said there would be no upcoming changes for like the current school year, but they would do more research to see if the consultants' recommendations were quote unquote feasible. But Megan, I have not been keeping up with the superintendent's newest announcement. What has he been saying about all of these recommendations?
Yeah, so I mean, big news. In a presentation to the school board this week, Walters says he and his team support almost every change in the consultant's recommendations.
Okay.
Yeah, so this firm, by the way, they are from Boston. They're called Education Resource Strategies. We'll have a link in our show notes with the full list of proposed closures if you're wondering if like one near you or one that your kid goes to is part of it. If you're a PPS parent, I'm sure you're familiar with this by now. But it's almost entirely elementary and middle schools, with the exception of Pittsburgh Malines. That's a 6 through 12 school. Consultants are recommending going back to the traditional model of like how they lump the grades together. So like distinct elementary schools, middle schools, high schools.
That's what I grew up familiar with. So that was actually kind of a surprising change coming to Pittsburgh for me.
I mean, I grew up in a K-8, but literally like my district was so small, it was one school. One school, that was a whole district. You literally switched school districts to go to high school. Anyway, the district, of course, has way more schools than that. But a lot of them are that pre-K through 8th grade or 6th grade through 12th grade. So all of these schools would get reconfigured with one big exception, Kappa. So that's the super popular arts magnet downtown. That would stay a 6 through 12 school.
Okay.
And then another big recommendation was phasing out most of the elementary school magnet programs. So there's a lot of nitty gritty to all of this, a lot more recommendations. We'll link to some of the best reporting in town in our show notes, along with the superintendent's presentation if you want to dig into it more.
I'm definitely interested in peeking at that presentation now. Well, earlier this week, Walters talked to us about why he thinks there's this need for change at the district, including those closures. In case you missed that conversation, here's part of what he had to say.
Now we're in a space where we have not closed schools or addressed our financial challenges in 13 years. That was the last time that we looked at our footprint, and we've lost over a quarter of our population since then. So, my mother always tells me, Wayne, when you see writing on the wall, you better stop and read it. Well, I've read the writing. It's very obvious. It's clear. It may have some graffiti design to it, but it's beautifully illustrated of some factual statements about our core reality financially. And also our students have shared that vision for themselves around their experience in Pittsburgh Public Schools and why it is not equitable. Why don't I have the same access and opportunities? And as a pretty small district compared to, other districts in the country, we have to be a district of excellence and not one with pockets. The pockets will not sustain the complete garment. It just will not. And in Pittsburgh, our students deserve this, but more importantly, we're too small not to insist upon this.
So that was Tuesday's episode. If you want to scroll back in your feed, when we were talking, Dr. Walters also confirmed that Pittsburgh Public would be in the hole at least $20 million by
so
2027. It's so much money. So these financial challenges he's talking about are very real.
And I know there's been a lot of questions about how much money this plan would save the district. Do we have a sense of that now?
According to the presentation, if the district implemented this plan, it would save about $3 million a year. But that's only about 10% of their current operating deficit.
Yeah.
So like the money they're already behind. It's not that it doesn't feel to me like that much, but maybe they feel like it's worth it. They say it would also cut $50 million in facility costs.
Okay. That, I guess, makes a little more sense. But I know it's not just the superintendent and leadership team deciding all of this. What does the school board think?
Yeah, I was reading up about that in Public Source and WESA. They've really been following this so closely. Some board members expressed some skepticism. They said they needed more information before they could, try to vote on this because, ultimately they are the ones that have final say. Some of the stuff that they, wanted to know more about was like the financial info and the budget for all of these changes. Like you can't just shut the door on a school. Like you have to do things to get it ready to be closed.
Right.
How much does that stuff cost? That there wasn't enough details on things like transportation or class sizes for this reconfiguration, or on what happens to the buildings that get closed. Like WESA pointed out that Pittsburgh Public is already still holding on to 4 buildings that have been closed at some point in the past. And that's better than it used to be. They used to have a lot more buildings that were just sitting around, but that's expensive to just have to manage, maintain a building so it doesn't crumble.
And the buildings here are old.
Well, it's like a thing with a house. If someone's not living there, it doesn't matter. Even if it's new construction, stuff's going to start falling apart really fast.
Mm-hmm. So then next, the school board will vote on how to proceed with all of this.
That's what we assume, but there's a lot of pieces leading up to that, whether they're going to run a public comment period and when it starts. Theoretically, it could be in March. It would have to run 3 months. That's something the state requires if you're going to close schools. So, as soon as we hear what's up with that, we will let folks know about how you can weigh in. The district also wants to hire a demographer. So that's going to be more money. That'll be another consultant to figure out what these feeder patterns should be. So that's literally going street by street by street to decide
that's more detailed than I would have guessed.
You live here, so that means your kid goes over there, which you can imagine can get complicated. It can disrupt patterns. Say you live here and your best friend lives across the street, you guys might not be in class together anymore. That stuff is disruptive. But if things go according to this proposed timeline, if public comment starts in March, for example, the school board would vote on a final plan in August, and then they would be finalizing the timeline for everything that comes after that, probably in December.
Okay, so we've got timelines for when we'll get more timelines.
Correct. Yeah. That's public education.
So very much longer range. It doesn't seem like changes are going to be coming for the 2025 to 2026 school year. But as always, keep listening to the pod and subscribe to that Hey Pittsburgh newsletter for any other updates.
Today's show is sponsored by the Frick Pittsburgh Museum and Gardens and their newest, still upcoming exhibition. Mark your calendars for artist Kara Walker and her Harper's Pictorial History of the Civil War annotated. If you don't know Walker's work yet, this is a perfect time to acquaint yourself. Her contemporary artworks are on display all over the United States, literally San Francisco to New York, and soon right here in our own backyard. She has won a MacArthur Genius Grant. The Washington Post even called her this generation's Andy Warhol. She really brings the hype. Now, I have only seen pictures of this exhibition, so I'm going to be just like most of y'all, checking this out for the very first time. But we should look forward to big artworks. Walker's bringing 15 large-scale prints where she uses these striking black silhouettes over old Harper's Weekly engravings to depict the racist and violent reality that often gets glossed over in traditional historic narratives. Walker uses silhouettes in so much of her work. She says they really say a lot with very little information, just like a stereotype. The exhibition, Kara Walker, Harper's Pictorial History of the Civil War Annotated, opens soon at the Frick on March 1st. Get tickets and learn more at thefrickpittsburgh.org.
Ready to conquer your next big challenge? Make 2025 your medal year by signing up for the Dick's Sporting Goods Pittsburgh Marathon weekend of events. Happening May 3rd and 4th in Pittsburgh, it's more than a marathon. Choose from a marathon, relay, 5K, and more. And if you prefer walking, join the popular half-marathon walking division. The Pittsburgh Marathon isn't just about running. It's about community, celebration, and pushing yourself to new limits. Over 300,000 fans will be cheering you on through the streets of the Steel City. And the hardest step is the first one, signing up. A registration today is a commitment to your future self. Join the excitement by visiting thepittsburghmarathon.com. Use CityCast15 to save 15% off any event registration. That's thepittsburghmarathon.com. And again, use that code, CityCast15, for 15% off any event. So next up, some deer news about
deer news.
Yes, deer news, exactly. In case you missed it, there's been an archery program in some of our city's public parks because we have way too many deer here.
I love city deer. I know it's a Pittsburgh hot take, but I love them. I know they're a menace. I love them so much.
They are a menace. They are hurting our local ecosystem because all of our native plants are getting eaten. I am team plant in this situation. It's also not great for the deer. There are more of them. They're more likely to get hit by cars.
I know. They get scrawny. They get mangy.
And the city's solution to this, very good archers.
Up to this point, it's been very good archers. They put out the call, I guess, a couple of years ago now for initially 30 archers. The whole thing sounded so medieval.
It was really funny.
Like, people had to get approved to be able to hunt in parks, like, at certain times. It wasn't a complete free-for-all, but, like, to me, that even made it, like, more farcical. Like, I hope that you're wearing, like, you know, a crest and a flowing cloth or something behind
You've got the
you
city
as you
of
do
Pittsburgh seal on it.
Yeah, exactly. but like blaze orange, because why not?
Exactly. That orange would be important for the people just hanging out in the park. And this latest season, we just got the stats for the results. The 2024 to 2025 season had 50 archers. They bumped up that number. Archery took place in Frick, Riverview, Shenley, Highland Park, and Emerald View Park. Across all of these city parks, Megan, how many deer do you think were quote unquote harvested? That is the city's press release language.
I mean, 50 archers over, I don't know how many they were. I wonder how many they were like told to like try to go for. I don't know. I'm going to go like 150.
199. So,
yeah, I was thinking like 3 deer per archer. They got 4. That's pretty solid.
So out of these 199 deer, 92 of them were donated to food banks. So this meant 14,720 meals were distributed to people around the city. That's really exciting.
Which I still, my mind is still blown that that's a thing we can do. Like, you cannot buy venison off the shelf in your grocery store, but we are allowed to hunt it, give it to a food bank, and then suddenly it's like fine to give to people. Our system for food distribution in this country is wild to me.
It is. But going back to this deer program, like I said up top, the whole point was to help decrease the deer population. That's not happening.
Perfect.
The city said in this press release that the archery program's working and that the population is not going up and it's kind of like stabilizing the number of deer, but it's not going down. So, to actually achieve that goal, another program has been put into place earlier this month. It is called a targeted harvesting program. In, normal language, it's sharpshooters.
Wait, like guns? Like actual, like,
yes,
clicky bang bang, like guns?
The city's been working with the USDA for this. So the USDA is contracting these marksmen. So this is not like a sign up free for all. And I guess these people are good with guns because they can hit a 1-inch target from 100 meters away. So that's over 300 feet, but still like
that. Yeah. Like at that point, we're talking about like, I assume like a rifle or a shotgun with a scope. And like, when is this happening?
It is happening now. It's been happening since the beginning of February. It is going to run through the end of March. So this is only happening in Frick and Riverview Park. It is from 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. when the parks are like technically closed. But
I can get in there. Like,
yeah, you can still
Riverview
walk
doesn't
in.
have a gate. Like, you can just walk around.
And it's not like they're like sweeping the parks to make sure everyone's out by a certain time. I
hope they are. I hope they're at least doing like a drive-through, because city police do drive through Riverview a lot actually after dark.
Okay, they could, but also I could very easily see someone missing a person. I was at Frick the other day. Obviously did not go through the whole park, but I was at one of the big entrances by the environmental center. I did not see a single sign about the fact that there'd be like guns in the park at night. And I feel like, there hasn't really been great signage for the archery program in general, but like arrows to guns feels very different.
Yeah, it's not like, an arrow like wouldn't hurt if I were walking through the park. And like, I mean, these people are experts at what they do. I don't want to minimize that. I'm sure these hunters are like really, really good and talented at their skill. But like, it's still like the liability has got to be a lot higher for that. Like, it's one thing to get like erroneously hit with an arrow, which we should say, like, if I'm remembering correctly, there's not been a single incident. Like, that's not happened.
Not this past round either.
But it's just scarier to think that there's guns and like people using like, I mean, are they using, I assume they're using silencers. Like, they'd have to.
And the press release, the city hasn't released a ton of information. I mean, I haven't seen on Reddit or like Nextdoor like gun sounds in frickin' Riverview. So I'm assuming they're doing what they can to, minimize any disturbances.
Whew. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing what their results are, I guess, this time next year.
Me too. Consider this also your warning for guns in the park.
Yeah, through March.
This episode is brought to you by Peacock. The new Peacock original documentary, Matthew Perry, A Hollywood Tragedy, dives deep into the beloved actor's rise to fame and his tragic death. 5 people, including Perry's personal assistant, 2 medical doctors, and an alleged Hollywood drug dealer known as the Ketamine Queen, were charged with conspiracy to illegally provide Perry with the ketamine. Explore the details of the case in this heartbreaking special, streaming now only on Peacock.
This episode is brought to you by the Nissan Armada Pro 4X. With a twin-turbo V6 engine ready to propel your adventures, up to 8,500 pounds of towing capacity to haul all your favorite toys and space for 8 passengers, Nissan's most powerful car yet will chew up and spit out anything you throw at it. Learn more about the all-new 2025 Nissan Armada at nissanusa.com. Towing capacity varies by configuration. See Nissan Towing Guide and Owner's Manual for additional information. Always secure cargo.
All right, Sophia, last up, this has got to be the weirdest press conference I have seen in our city in a very long time. It went down last week, so after we recorded our podcast, so we didn't get to include it, but it's just, I'm still absorbing the impact of the whole thing.
Yeah, this is a press conference with Mayor Gainey. I also missed the first clip you sent from that press conference, so it was kind of weird just coming back to that like very late in the day before I was logging off.
You mean me just word vomiting at everybody in our company Slack channel? Like, look what happened.
The actual clip, I was just so confused. We'll get to that in a minute. We have tape to play for you.
Yeah, so for people who are not following this as closely, here's the gist. The city's public safety department had planned a press conference to celebrate 1 year with that new downtown police substation. Sophia, I know you've seen it. It's on Wood Street between Forbes and 5th. We walk by it all the time when we're working in person down there.
Yes. AKA when we go to lunch.
Yes.
And, this press conference should have been a nice feather in the city's cap. 1 year, yay. But the day before the press conference, a teenager was shot downtown. The police response to that went about as well as it could from their perspective. The child was treated right away. No one died. And the person who shot them, the police say, was apprehended there too. I don't know if that downtown substation had any effect on those response times, but, I have to imagine it didn't hurt. If anything, this bad thing happening could have been the city pointing to, this substation and changes in the police department and saying, hey, look, our plan is working. That is not what they did.
It is not, unfortunately. Sophia has been such a good sport and let me walk you through all of this in advance. So, yeah, instead they stayed on what was clearly their message in advance that they probably practiced and agreed upon it. But then this child gets shot.
And that changes things a lot.
That changes things. And they weren't not acknowledging it when people brought it up, but they definitely weren't making it part of the discussion. A lot of it just still felt rah-rah substation, crime is down downtown. But then they had no data to support that claim. I think they provided some numbers maybe to a few people after this press conference was over, after the live stream cut off. But I just can't imagine how you plan a press conference to talk about crime being down in a neighborhood and then you don't prepare any stats to help you prove your point.
Yeah, I think people really want numbers for this kind of claim. But up to this point of the press conference, things are still pretty normal. Then Rick Earl from WPXI, he asks a question. He's basically saying hey, you all are saying it's good. That's great. But, some people still don't feel safe down here.
They don't feel safe. That's a different thing.
Mm-hmm. That's a good distinction. But, Rick asks, what can you say to make them feel better?
Yeah, and we'll play you a clip here of Chief Chris Ragland, Police Chief Chris Ragland.
Mm-hmm.
He was, reminder, handpicked by our former chief, Larry Scurato, to take over anytime Scurato was out of town reffing basketball games. So Gainey has since nominated Ragland to keep the job, but council is sort of stonewalling. I assume at this point they're just trying to make it past the Democratic primary in May. Gainey is, of course, facing a challenger, Corey O'Connor, who is our county controller. So all of that is in the backdrop. This is Ragland talking about people being afraid of downtown crime.
What I would say is downtown is safe. We have put together this downtown public safety center with PNC. We have built partnerships with all of the businesses, with the people who live here, who play here. And what I'll tell you is that some of those incidents it's very difficult for you to prevent that. What we did do is we were able to save a man's life and take a man into custody within seconds. And that's all because of the presence that we have down here.
So pretty normal, right? Like on message, crediting the substation with making this possible. Still no data, but at least acknowledges that, yeah, this sucks. No one should get shot, but we did our best. It could have and should have ended there. But then Gainey walks up to the mic. No one has asked him to talk. He does this all on his own.
Oh, that part is new to me. I have just seen the clips of him circulating, and I assumed he was just at the mic.
Nope. Ragland speaks, and then up comes Gainey.
I think that's a good answer. But I think also, you know, we can question it from multiple different positions. Like you said, we can throw away the numbers. Let's talk about another number that really helps create a safe city. How many positive stories have you reported, Rick?
Here he comes digging in on Rick Earl.
How many times have you got out there and talked about the great things that's going on downtown and the light nightlife that has come back and really demonstrated our city in a way that shows its beauty and not the ugly? How many stories have you created, Rick, about downtown and the fact that more people are coming back downtown and they're feeling safe downtown without the power of the media? What perception are you discussing?
He's getting heated.
So I didn't ask you, I said you. So at the end of the day, what I'm saying is when we talk about perception, the perception is also that we also talk about the beauty of our city. Watch this. How many love the beauty of our city? Raise your hand.
Reminder, reporters
Raise your hand.
and police
Clap
officers
if you
are
love
in
the
this
beauty
room.
of our city. Clap. Rick can't hear you, trust me. Clap some more. How many think the police are doing a good job? Clap. How many think our reach team is doing a good job? Clap. How many think we better today than we were in 2021? Clap. So we can throw all the numbers out that Rick talked about and said, listen, people may not see, but the reality is part of perception comes from you. And at the end of the day, if the perception is only on the negative, then that's what you promote. If we're going to promote the beauty of our city, the loveliness of the people of this city, how people come together to improve the overall quality, then at the end of the day, show me some positivity.
The clapping, it is so awkward.
I'm actually surprised that many people clapped. I'd just be sitting around looking like, what's happening?
Yeah, I mean, I did talk to at least one friend that was in the room, and they're just like, I mean, they said I didn't personally clap, but like you could see all these people like staring around the room like, well, he is the boss. Do we clap? Do we do it? So like, I mean, of course, like the police officers and others, like city officials, like, and there were neighborhood folks there too. Like, they're gonna clap. Like the man's yelling at you to clap.
That makes sense.
But then, of course, someone asked Ragland about council, like slowing down this process to make him chief. Just some inside baseball for folks that aren't used to these press conferences. When the mayor and other city officials get up in front of the media, sometimes they have not been answering your phone calls for a good long time. So this is your opportunity to get them to answer something else that may or may not be directly related to why they invited you there that day. So they asked Ragland, about this process that's like become pretty protracted. Now it sounds like there's going to be like some community meetings. The NAACP has asked council to, slow it down. Ragland sort of stumbles through that. He says he loves meetings. Clearly,
okay.
I mean, he sounds like he's trying to do his best in what is suddenly now a very weird interaction overall. But then Gainey does a sort of like strange pseudo job interview. Again, comes up to the podium. Nobody's asked for this. He says, Ragland, do you want this job? Ragland's like,
of course, the answer is yes.
I do. Like, I mean, he's just like nodding. And Gainey brags on Chief Ragland a bit more. But then he goes back to bullying Rick Earl and asks Rick Earl to say thank you to Chief Ragland for making the city better. We'll play it here.
He's done a fine job for the city of Pittsburgh. And for that, Rick, you should say thank you. Say thank you, Rick.
So weird.
Say thank you, Rick. Can you say thank you?
Oh, thank you, sir.
No, say thank you to Chief Ragland. Say thank you to him.
Hey, what's up, Chris? Thank you.
No, say Chief Ragland. Say thank you, Chief Ragland. Say it to him. That's what I thought. Thank you.
This feels like someone just got sent to the principal's office.
Like, he just walks away. Like, it's very clear from the video that he thinks this is a mic drop moment. I don't think that's how it reads.
No, it's very awkward. Why are you singling this one reporter out?
I mean, I know why they're singling Rick Earl out. Like, Rick Earl is always like he's always got the receipts on the Pittsburgh Bureau of Police. Like, he always knows what's up.
That's fair. But I think like perception wise, it does look like you're just calling one person out and ragging on him. So
yeah. And this is how the press conference ends. Like, the Trib has this incredible quote that I assume they got after the press conference because I didn't recall it in the actual tape here, where Gainey says, quote, "I'm not going to speak without knowledge. I haven't looked at the numbers." And it's like,
wow.
This is a press conference about crime going down, which is an assertion you cannot possibly make without crunching some kind of numbers. And you are speaking a lot, but you don't know the numbers. Like, it's just sort of boggles the mind.
Did anyone come up and talk about numbers at this?
The Bureau did put up a dude from its crime analysis unit who literally cannot analyze a single piece of data while he is standing at that podium. He goes on and on about a new records management system that he says they've known about for a while and was required that they switch over to by the feds, which implies to me that you have had time to think about how to talk about this once this change happens. But nope, still no numbers. Instead, he says the new system shows that crime is actually up across many areas.
That's not what you said at the beginning.
But it basically is just like, but don't look at that. Look away from the man in the curtain. Not that you could look at numbers if you wanted to, because they didn't show you anything that day. The whole thing just felt so wildly bungled, especially for an administration that is trying to keep its job.
Exactly. I think people who are watching this mayoral race really closely and are tuning in now are seeing a not so fantastic side of Gainey.
Yeah, I mean, shout out to friend of the pod, Pit Girl, aka Virginia Montanez, who, in addition to working on her history thesis right now, she also took time this week to laugh about this in her Substack and add some colorful memes to the whole thing. Mm-hmm. She asked what I think we are all thinking after watching this, which is Ed Gainey okay? Does he need a Snickers bar?
Maybe. You do a lot of things when you're hangry.
If you want to watch any of this for yourself, it is on YouTube. We'll put it in the show notes. The loonier bits start around the 27-minute mark. Sophia, close us out. What are you going to be thinking about this weekend?
PhD admissions are back at Pitt, baby. I will not be applying, but I do have some friends who are looking into grad school right now. So last week, the University of Pittsburgh paused their PhD admissions because of uncertainty about NIH funding. So that's from the National Institute of Health.
It's like the body by which the government typically gives out most of the federal funding for research and other things. And actually, WESA has been doing some great reporting about this because I did not realize Pitt is such a hefty recipient of this NIH funding. Like, they're like the 6th most in the nation, and certainly the largest recipient in our area.
Definitely. And NIH funding is one of the many things that the Trump admin wants to cut and like reevaluate how funds are being distributed. So Trump wants to cap indirect costs, and that money goes to things like keeping buildings operational, like administrative and support staff and that kind of work.
You can't do research if you don't have money for pens. Like, it's basics.
Right. And, besides Pitt, we also have other big research universities, and this would hit Pittsburgh really hard. The numbers that I've seen reported are a little different depending on the outlet, but I've seen estimates that we lose like $120 to $140 million of funding if this cap on indirect costs gets implemented. But Pitt is resuming PhD admissions while they're still keeping an eye on the situation. So I guess a little bit of good news, bad news still.
I mean, yeah, it definitely, can you imagine you've been preparing your whole collegiate career to get your PhD, maybe do a postdoc. This is part of your career trajectory. And now suddenly I just imagine the spots are going to be not as plentiful. It's just this. It just has.
And you don't know if you'll be able to finish your PhD with this kind of back and forth. I would be worried that some money gets taken away.
It's not this moment I'm worried about, which already sucks. It's the people that don't have their PhDs or their postdocs or run their own labs 10 years from now. That's the part that I'm devastated about.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Megan? Are you thinking about anything more fun, more upbeat?
Mine is not as dire. It's not as serious. I'll be thinking about the new NFL Players Union report card. So they've been doing this for 3 years. There's a players union, if you're not familiar, with the National Football League. Steelers players are part of it, but they started doing this survey, which asked players to rate things like their training facilities, food quality, access to medical care, travel accommodations, like all kinds of stuff. The TLDR is that the Steelers did a very bad job for the third year in a row. We got 28th out of 32 teams overall. Our coach did very well. The players love him, Mike Tomlin. The Rooneys, the family that owns the team, horrible, like totally failing. Some positives this year include that the Steelers finally got a daycare option for players and their families.
Amazing. Childcare is hard to find.
Honestly. And that's like one of the things that they ran like really in the tank about last year and we made fun of on this show. But players still feel like the facilities are super cramped, that they don't have adequate training facilities to feel like they're, preparing to play their best.
Feels like a big one.
And that they can't get a hold of the nutritionist, which tells me that maybe it's like one human being who's just overworked. Like I can't, I don't know. I don't know what that team is like. A reminder, if you're listening to this, of the sports ball of it all, the Steelers season is over. It does not start again until the fall. We're in another rebuilding moment because at least as of this recording, we have no idea who our quarterback is going to be, for example. Also, if you're listening to this and you are curious, it's the Steelers, how bad could it be? I highly recommend the series Hard Knocks on Max right now. That was about the AFC North. Not to watch the whole thing, but just turn an episode on and fast forward through, because you get a sense very quickly at how Pittsburgh stacks up against Baltimore, Cincinnati, and Cleveland. We love to rag on those cities, but their facilities look so nice and ours do not at all.
Well, maybe a little public shaming is going to do the trick. But while we are on the subject of TV, a couple more things I'm actually thinking about. I still haven't watched The Pit on Max yet. It's this new emergency medicine drama, but I have heard really good things.
Yeah, it was shot over at Allegheny General Hospital. I've heard good things too, but I haven't watched it. ER scarred me a little bit when I was younger.
Oh, I like binging things. I'm not good at watching week by week. So I will catch up when season 1 is out. So I am prepared for season 2. The show recently got this renewal announced.
Oh, yeah.
So fun news for all those Pitt fans out there. But another local show, The Pradeeps of Pittsburgh, you can find season 1 on Amazon Prime. They unfortunately did not get a second season. Womp womp. But I am personally in a bit of a TV drought. So if anyone wants to send show recommendations to me, something with many a season that I can binge, hit me up. You can always send us fun things at our email. It's pittsburgh@citycast.fm.
Yeah, send Sophia show recommendations. Send me Pittsburgh movie ones. The older and crappier, the better. I want the real, the bottom of the barrel. That's for me. That's all for today here on CityCast Pittsburgh. Our music is by Benji. Mallory Falk is our executive producer. Sophia Lowe, Elizabeth Kama, and Natalie Rivera produce the show. Francesca DeBecco writes our Hey Pittsburgh newsletter, and I am your host, Megan Harris. We will be back on Monday with more news from around the city. Have a great weekend, everyone.
Laser pointer. Very advanced laser pointer.